Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Monday Lunchtime Digest for June 2nd, 2025. Happy Monday, Hayley.
Happy License Renewal Month, Micah.
Hey, we have a lot on the agenda that we want to talk about today. Hayley had an interview with Representative Mike Osburn to talk about the reasons why he removed the sunset bill from the agenda. We also are going to talk about what would happen if the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health licensure sunset was not renewed, some possibilities of what may happen. And then also we're going to talk about what's going on with OCI and with Edmond Counseling Professional Development. So we are very happy that you decided to join us today. So Hayley, tell us about your interview with Representative Osburn.
So on May 23rd, I sat down with Representative Osburn over Zoom, and we talked about what was his rationale for taking the Senate bill off the agenda that would have extended the sunset date of the Board of Behavioral Health licensure, as well as, like you said, what would happen if the board were to ultimately dissolve. And so, as you know, we might know, back earlier in May, I believe it was May 12th, Dr. Johnny Fredman, who sits on the Board of Behavioral Health, had a call to action to mental health therapists in the Oklahoma Providers for what is it, Micah? What's the Facebook group?
Yeah, the Oklahoma Providers for Privacy Facebook
Providers
group.
for Privacy. There we go. So he had a post earlier this month where he, pleaded with us therapists to call representatives to let them know that we do not want the Senate bill taken off the agenda that would extend the sunset date. And so that was taken off for a variety of reasons, I have come to learn. And so, but one of the rumors that were spreading, that was going around, was that it was taken off the agenda because of something to do with UCO students not being able to sit for the licensing exam. And so, in my meeting with Representative Osburn, I talked to him about, hey, what was your rationale for that? And basically, he said there are two things. He said, one, it's not uncommon for these sunset bills to be put on the agenda a year early. And so the Oklahoma board will not dissolve until the end of June of 2026, as it is right now. And so the sunset bill, what that would have done is, instead of it sunsetting in June of 2026, it would have pushed it to 2028. And so even though the bill did not get passed this year, even though it was taken off the agenda, we still have one more chance next year. He says that what oftentimes lawmakers will put many of these sunset bills on the agenda a year early in case the legislators get a chance to approve them early. And so basically, they would approve them early this year. That would take it off the agenda for next year, make it lighter. But due to a variety of circumstances this year, being we have a lot of bills and they also had a lot of vetoes to try to override, they decided to take that off the agenda for this year because of that. But Representative Osborne also said that he had made the decision to take it off the agenda because he also wanted to call to the board's attention the need for a meeting. So according to Representative Osburn, there's a group of UCO students who were denied the ability to take the licensing exam by the Board of Behavioral Health, but neither the students nor Representative Osburn, according to Representative Osburn, knew the reason why. And so Representative Osburn was stating that he was having difficulty in getting a hold of the board, and so he believed that there was a breakdown of communication that warranted this bill being taken off the agenda, in his words, in an effort to bring everyone to the table. And I asked Representative Osborne, I said, where did this breakdown of communication start? It seems like the breakdown is between the University of Central Oklahoma, the Board of Behavioral Health, and the lawmakers themselves. And according to Representative Osborne, he's not sure. But since then, they have met. And from what he understands, the students will be able to sit for the licensing exam. And so that being said, and at least that's according to what he has said. He says he's not really sure what the meeting was about, but that there was a conversation that was had, but he's not really sure exactly what was discussed between UCO and the Board of Behavioral Health. And so, according to Representative Osburn, he said in his words, there's a 0% chance that the board will sunset next year. He firmly believes that the lawmakers will have the bill on the agenda to extend the sunset, and that if there is any kind of veto, that they have the ability to override it. That being said, I know that the Board of Cosmetology did sunset this year, and last week the lawmakers were not able to override the veto. However, lawmakers and Governor Stitt responded to a series of protests by those who are governed by the Board of Cosmetology and at least extended the sunset date until June of 2026. So that way they can have a discussion of what will this look like if this board is no longer here. Because as it stood last week, before they came to this agreement, the Board of Cosmetology was going to dissolve at the end of June. And so what that would look like is that all of the things that were regulated by that board would have been moved under the Department of Enterprise and Management Services. Now, there was a lot of questions too on if the licenses will still exist as they are, how would license verification happen, like would the laws and regulations move along with them? So a lot of those questions were left unanswered. And so part of the reason for extending the expiration of the board until June of 2026, and again, it wasn't an override necessarily, the board is still set to sunset, we just extended it by a year, is to give them time to kind of figure out what is next for who all is governed by the Board of Cosmetology. But according to Representative Osburn, I asked him, what would happen if our board were to dissolve? He said that likely it would be the same thing. He said, according to him, just because the Board of Behavioral Health were to dissolve, it doesn't mean that LPC and LMFT and LBP clinicians wouldn't be able to practice. It stated that our licenses will still be active, we will still be able to practice. However, the duties of the board will be transferred to another board. And we also, what is the reason for the dissolution of the boards? And as we know, Governor Stitt has been a proponent of deregulation. And so things that Governor Stitt has done in the past is, for one, for every one piece of legislation is introduced or one law that's changed, 2 more have to be removed. And Governor Stitt has also said that he wants to consolidate the boards. In his idea, this deregulation is better regulation. Less government oversight is better for the community. And Representative Osborn, though he stated he did not necessarily agree that the dissolution of the boards would be a benefit, he was a proponent of deregulation in many other ways. In fact, Representative Osborn stated that he believed that the board had overstepped by saying that these students couldn't practice. In his words, it shouldn't matter how much education you get or what your education is, but if you can pass the licensing exam, you should be able to practice, which goes against what the Board of Behavioral Health standards and statutes are, because for both LPC and LMFT candidates, you have to have a specific master's degree, specific coursework, as well as at least 300 hours of clinical internship before you can even sit for candidacy. So according to Representative Osborn, even that's too much. And so Representative Osborn, he has stated again, not necessarily that he's against the board or against the dissolution of the board, but he is for some of that deregulation himself. And so as it stands right now, the Board of Behavioral Health is not set to dissolve until June of 2026, and that is if the sunset date is not extended next year. So we still have 1 more year for legislators to extend the sunset date. If for some reason they extend that sunset date and Governor Stitt vetoes it, the lawmakers do have the ability to override that veto. But it sounds like at the end of the day, there might be a plan for us to be moved to another board if for some reason the Board of Behavioral Health does dissolve. Doesn't necessarily mean we won't have licenses anymore. And I think we need to keep a close eye on what is happening to the Board of Cosmetology to really give us an understanding of what might happen if our board does dissolve next year, because they are being moved currently under the Department of Oklahoma Enterprise and Management Services. And so if our trajectory is looking the same, and I think that we could possibly see some indicators of what that might look like for us if that were to happen next year. But again, according to Representative Osborn, he believes there's a 0% chance of that happening. That is coming from the man himself.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack here. And so Hayley wrote an article. You can find it in our article section at counselinginstitute.org. And so just to kind of talk a little bit about, the interview and what our understanding of the situation is. And so from looking at the Oklahoma Board of Behavioral Health on their meeting agenda, they had on their meeting agenda the Certificate for Professional Counseling Licensure from UCO. That was on their meeting agenda. Now, their meeting minutes are not out. They don't come out until the next meeting whenever the board members vote on approving the minutes. So that's why the minutes are not out on the website yet. So we don't know what that agenda item contained, what they discussed, what the decision was. None of that is available to us right now. Whenever I reached out to Kelly Collins, who is the chairman of the Board of Behavioral Health, I mentioned during the last Monday Lunchtime Digest her response, and I was going to see if I could pull it up real quick. Here we go. So her response to me, this was an email I received on May 14, 2025. She said, here's the board's official statement regarding Senate Bill 397, which was the one that Osborn took off of the agenda. Senate Bill 397, the bill to extend the sunset for State Board Behavioral Health licensure, was not heard in the House by the necessary 2025 timeline. Here are the current facts. The board will be sunsetting June 30, 2026, if no legislative action is taken. As Hayley already mentioned, we still have another legislative session coming up where this can be addressed. The 2026 legislature can renew the Board of Behavioral Health license sunset to prevent this from happening. Much of the information being shared about the situation is not factual. She did not go into detail about that, what was factual and what was not. There are positive steps being taken by all parties involved. The board will continue to conduct board business. I asked her if she would expand a little bit, particularly regarding Osborne's comments that that this had something to do with what's going on with UCO students. And she said, I'm not able to comment on Representative Osborne's comments as I have not had them spoken or shared with me directly by Representative Osburn. So since this is a matter that requires a full board's input, I'm not able to comment on the steps being taken at this time. So again, as Hayley already mentioned, there was a breakdown in communication somewhere. The UCO program was on the agenda for them to discuss. Apparently, they made a decision during that board meeting that UCO didn't like, I'm guessing, that had something to do with their students not being able to sit for the test. I'm guessing this is all assumption because we do not have the minutes to see. They then tried to contact the board, and then as far as what happened there, as far as phone calls not being returned or emails not being returned or whatever was said, the next board meeting wasn't that happened in May, that board meeting. They did, or excuse me, thank you, April. What happened in April? They did not have a board meeting planned for May. And so their next board meeting isn't until June, which is, I think, Friday of this week, if I remember right. And so as a board, they were not going to have a regularly scheduled meeting to sit down to address, to put on the agenda any other concerns. So I don't know in these type of situations kind of what the normal protocol is. If a university program has a problem or anyone else has a problem with a board decision, they contact them, they get put on the agenda for the next board meeting, and then they meet during the next board meeting. I'm assuming that's a normal protocol, but at least in this situation, they reached out to them to have some comment to figure out what was going on, and they were able to resolve that. So all of that to say, it sounds like that this has gotten resolved, even though they did not pass the sunset bill during this term. This is not the first time that this has happened. I know Hayley and I have talked. It's happened to other programs where classes were not approved and students were kind of up the creek without a paddle. And so that has happened before. And I'm sure we could dig into it, and maybe people listening know, but I'm not sure how those programs responded to that, how they dealt with that. It seemed like this was just kind of a time, like the legislative session came up. The sunset bill was on the agenda. They had the ear of Representative Osborne, so they were able to pull this, by taking off the agenda to get the board's attention, apparently, according to Representative Osborne. So this is kind of, I mentioned during the last meeting, kind of some politicking that happened to get the board's attention. But he said that he is 100% sure that it's going to pass, that it will come up during the next legislative session, that it will not be an issue that will be voted in. But as Hayley has already mentioned, the message has been through STIT that he is wanting to consolidate boards and wanting to put them underneath larger entities. So that is something to keep on our radar to see is he going to, will it pass the sunset bill, and then would STIT vote, would he sign it or would he veto it? So doing just a little bit of research on, okay, well, what would happen if the board dissolved and was put under a larger entity? So according to my little research here, there are 21 states that have independent boards like our own, and there are approximately 29 states that are under broader agencies. So this isn't an atypical thing to happen. One of the ones that is under a broader agency is the Utah Division of Professional Licensing. And so if I can pull up here. So if you go to their website, let me see if I can share my screen here really quick. So if you go to their website, they're under the Utah Department of Commerce, and then you see all these licenses that it contains. And so then you find under here clinical mental health counseling, and you click on that, and then that's what takes you to their page that has like their requirements and things like that. So these, and they may use different terms, like whenever they're underneath a larger entity, they may still call them boards. They may call them divisions, like what this one's called here. I think I've seen in places where they've called, basically what this is like an advisory committee that then gives their recommendation to the board in making their decisions about particular issues that may come up. So who sits on this board may not be any mental health counselors, or, as we saw from the last one, because they govern so many licenses, may not be a mental health counselor, or may not be a social worker, or may not be a plumber, or whatever licenses that they have. So a lot of times these boards will listen to the recommendation division members, or they may, go against it for one particular reason or another. But some of the cons of something like this, now let me see if I can quit sharing my screen, buttons to share and to unshare stuff. So I wanted to be able to get it to work.
Oh, Micah, I don't think I can hear you anymore. It looks like you're muted.
There we go. Trying to push all my right buttons. So one of the problems with something like this is it just adds this whole other layer of bureaucracy. So it is a lot harder for things to get done in a timely manner because it has to go through a couple of other additional layers. Also because, the responsiveness for any particular policy relating to counseling takes longer to get taken care of. Whenever there's an independent board, there's more of an advocacy role for the profession. Whenever there is an overarching board, like in Utah, there's a weaker advocacy that can happen. And also regarding like budget and staffing, whenever there's an independent board, they have more like specific budget and staffing that they're able to do, as opposed to having to share that with a whole bunch of other boards. So, there's pros and cons to everything. Whether you, as listening to this, you think that, boy, that would be a great idea to be underneath a larger entity like the Department of Commerce for Utah, or in Representative Osborne said that maybe it would be underneath the office of, what was it?
Enterprise and Management Services.
Under the Office of Enterprise and Management. If you think that's a great idea, then that's your opinion. But if you think that that's not a great idea, that we should continue to be independent, then certainly we want to keep an eye on what's going on with this Senate bill to make sure that it gets passed, and that if it isn't passed, if it is vetoed, that we have some type of plan in action that we can try to do whatever we can to protest that, to make sure that we are able to keep our board independent. So Hayley, thank you so much for doing that interview with Representative Osborne. And again, she has the article that she's written that you can see, all the things that that she mentioned here today. and have that. So thanks again for doing that. And then also, unless you've been living under a rock, I'm sure you've heard about Allie Friesen, who has left the Oklahoma Board of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. So you want to talk a little bit about that, Hayley?
Sure thing. And so this happened last week. Allie Friesen was voted out of her commissioner role by the Oklahoma legislature. So in 2019, the Oklahoma legislature voted in a rule that would allow them to vote out a commissioner if they were to achieve 2/3 majority. And according to K4, last week it was a supermajority. So all but one representative actually voted to remove her. And so Allie Friesen is no longer the commissioner. Governor Stitt should be appointing a new commissioner soon, or at least an interim commissioner for the time being. But there was many different reasons for that. It hasn't necessarily been released that she was accused of doing any kind of fraudulent activity or anything like that. But there were a lot of different reasons that the legislators gave for their decision. Those included Commissioner Friesen not being able to answer many of their questions whenever she was called to testify. Also believing that some of her management practices were not helpful or healthy for the department that she ran, and a few other things. There have been some more personal attacks against her by the Oklahoma Attorney General and others. However, the official vote was for those reasons of no confidence. And so to be continued on who the interim commissioner will be and how that will affect the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. As of right now, we're still in a budget shortfall, so we'll see what happens.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And there was a lot of bills, that he had vetoed that they overrode his veto. There was, I think out of the 40 something, they overrode maybe close to 30 of his veto. So they pushed a lot of stuff through. And here in the next couple of weeks, we'll be unpacking that and talking more about that on our Monday Lunchtime Digest. There's a lot of the bills that were signed into law that there are things that we need to be aware of. I mean, one of the ones is raising the age of consent from 16 to 18. So now the age of consent is 18 years old for a person to have sexual relations with someone. And so that's something that obviously is going to affect our counseling practice if we hear that somebody who's over 18 had sex with our client who's 17 and 11 months. And so that would influence how we practice things. So Hayley and I will continue to unpack the things that have happened. If there's any particular bill that you're interested in us discussing, then please let us know in the comments section, and we will certainly look into that and see what we can find out about that. But we'll be unpacking these things, and then we are planning on doing some more kind of advocacy type training coming up here in the fall. And I know in February, we will have our next town hall meeting. So it will be our 3rd annual town hall meeting. So just stay tuned, and we will try to let you know what is going on in the government of Oklahoma with all things that are related to mental health. And so, Hayley, what is going on with OCI?
And so we have quite a stacked June. So starting this week on Wednesday, we're going to have our inaugural Whimsical Wednesdays. And so Whimsical Wednesdays will take place from 5:30 to 7 o'clock p.m. Every month it is going to change when it comes to the location, but always be the first Wednesday of the month. And this first Wednesday, we are meeting at Prairie Artisan Ales in Oklahoma City. And so join us at 5:30, from 5:30 to 7. We'll have time to network. We'll have some games, some opportunities to win some continuing education prizes, and much more. So if you have any questions or if you want to learn more, send us an email, hello@edmondcounseling.com, or shoot us a text, 405-440-3034. Bring your fun and bring your dog if you'd like to. I think that Benny might be joining us. Is that right, Micah?
Yeah, Benny might be joining. Trinity says she's going to have to give him a good brushing out before he comes. But yeah, Prairie Artisan Ale, they're dog friendly, so you can bring your dog if you'd like. We would love to meet them. And as Hayley said, it's just a chance to network and spend time with each other, relax with each other, and have a chance to win CEs while you're there.
Absolutely. And so
all right.
On top of all that, go ahead, Micah.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
So on top of all that, we have many events coming up this month. And so the next 3 Saturdays, so Saturday, June 7th, June 14th, and June 21st, we're going to have 6 hours of continuing education each of those Saturdays at the Halo Project. And so this Saturday, we're very happy to welcome back Lisa King. So Lisa King has presented with us every year for the last 4 years. She is an absolute delight and a fantastic presenter, in my opinion. But she's going to be doing 2 trainings with us this week. In the morning, she'll be doing a 3-hour substance abuse specific training on working with substance abuse and trauma. And in the afternoon, she'll be doing a 3-hour training on helping clients who have experienced trauma build resilience. So 2 fantastic trainings coming up this Saturday. Next Saturday, we're going to welcome back our old friend, Kayla Jones. Kayla's going to be doing 2 trainings with us. In the morning, an introduction to sex therapy, 3 hours of general CEUs. In the afternoon, she'll be doing a 3-hour ethics training on the ethics of marriage and family counseling. And that one is filling up pretty quickly. And so if you're interested in joining or that one or any of them, please go to counselinginstitute.org and register whenever you can. And then our very last Saturday of in-person trainings this year will be Saturday, June 21st. And we're going to have Jamie Lavecchio in the morning talking about harm reduction and addictions counseling. And in the afternoon, we'll have our very own Terry Schuline talking about supervision. And so her supervision training is going to be really interesting in that the topic is helping your supervisees to find their modality to anchor to. And so a lot of incredible trainings coming up. Again, you can go to counselinginstitute.org to register today. And remember, members save $25 on all in-person trainings, if not more. So our professional members save $25, our paraprofessionals and our candidates save even more. And so if you have any questions about membership, go to counselinginstitute.org, select that membership tab, and find out how you can become a member of the Counseling Institute today.
Absolutely. And those are our in-person ones that are coming up. And then we have all of our on-demand trainings as well that all meet criteria for Oklahoma mental health professionals. So certainly check us out with the in-person or the on-demand training, because LPCs only have 28 more days, I think, roughly 28, 29. I can't remember if there's 30 or 31 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
And our ABC folks too.
So time is ticking. So come get your CEs with us, and we are happy to do that for you, to provide that for you. So what is going on at Edmond Counseling Professional Development? I want to make sure that I mention we have our Smart Recovery Family and Friends meeting. And so if you're not familiar with Family and Friends, that is Smart Recovery's answer to Al-Anon. So if you have somebody that AA 12-step programs are just not a good fit for them, then send them to Smart Recovery, which is based on cognitive behavior therapy, ACT, other mindfulness type of approaches. But send them to Smart Recovery. And then if you have a family or friend that is dealing with somebody that has addiction, then send them to Family and Friends. And that is ran by our very own Sarah Mears Ivy. And so it is on Wednesdays from 6 to 7:30. You can join in person or online. So to find more information about Smart Recovery or our Smart Recovery Family and Friends meeting, go to smartedmond.com. And we'd love for you to refer clients to us. Or if you're just kind of curious, I've had some counselors that have sit in just because they're kind of curious and thinking about maybe starting their own Smart Recovery meeting or their own Smart Family and Friend meeting, then just shoot me an email and happy to give you the information, and you are welcome to join us at our meeting as well. So definitely check that out. So Hayley, do we have a meeting or not a meeting? Do we? Well, we have a meeting, but do we have a winner for this week?
We do. Our winner this week is our good friend, Renee Perry. Yay, Renee.
Hey, congratulations, Renee. So what did Renee win?
So Renee has won a free on-demand training through the Oklahoma Counseling Institute. So Renee, send us an email, again, hello@edmondcounseling.com, or shoot us a text. I know you have our contact information as we've been talking a little bit these last couple of weeks. So reach out to us. We'll be happy to assign any on-demand course you'd like to your profile. Thank you so much for engaging with us. And if you'd like to be like Renee, you can do one of 3 or all 3 things. You can like this post, you can share this post, or you can comment your answer to today's question. And every time you do one of those 3 things, not only do you help us grow, help us be seen by others, we also get entered into next week's drawing. So thank you so much, Renee.
Yes, thank you, Renee. So what is the question for this week, Hayley?
So the question for this week is, what is on your summer playlist? And so, Micah, what's on your summer playlist?
Oh, I don't really have like a difference between summer playlist and regular playlist. I listen pretty much to just kind of the same type of stuff. But I had mentioned before, I'm really digging Billie Eilish right now. And so listening to her album, Hit Me Hard, Hit Me Soft. And so I'm really liking that. So that's, as far as one particular artist, that's who I'm listening to right now. So Hayley, who's on your summer playlist?
So for me, in the summertime, I like to listen to the Red Hot Chili Peppers because it reminds me of whenever I was in my early 20s, so emerging adult, still in college, went to a music festival where I had to camp out of the back of my car for 4 days. And in that music festival, I got to go see the Red Hot Chili Peppers live in a field in the middle of Tennessee. And so I listen to them in the summertime because it reminds me of those early days and that fun memory. And so I really enjoy putting on one of their records in the summer.
Nice. And I think they're still going around and performing, right?
They are. They had a tour earlier this year. I just missed them by like 2 weeks, I think, whenever I was in Japan. So I was disappointed about that. But I've seen them a couple of times live, but nothing will beat seeing them in a field during 170-degree weather. So that was great.
Nice. And I mean, you saying you remember listening to them in your 20s. I remember listening to them in my 20s. And so there you go. That's something that we share, is listening to the Red Hot Chili Peppers in our 20s. So we'd love to hear what is on your summer playlist. And as Hayley already said, anytime that you comment on our post, you like or share, each one of those things enter you in as a chance to win for our next CE drawing.
Yes. So thank you all so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Everyone have a good week. Bye-bye.